On set, the big story of the day, of course, the hostage crisis in Algeria.
That's right. It's on the front page of a lot of papers. Here it is on the front page of Le Figaro. It says Islamists retaliate in Algeria as French soldiers begin ground operations in Mali. There's a map on the cover of Le Figaro which shows the Maghreb region and the zone of influence of these various Islamist groups that are linked to Al-Qaeda. And you can see there that it's quite a huge area. Southern Algeria, Libya, most of Mauritania, Mali, and Niger. In their editorial, Le Figaro says that yesterday's spectacular hostage-taking is proof of just how popular these Islamist groups are. It's also proof, according to Le Figaro, that Algeria is key in the conflict against terrorists, Islamists in Mali. And according to Le Figaro, without Algeria, France's military operation will fail. And according to Le Figaro, the enemy, what they call the enemy, is very aware of this, and this is why they're hitting Algeria at its economic heart. And so according to Le Figaro, the Algerian government has to react now.
Perhaps not surprisingly, it's also on the front of Libération today.
That's right. Libération is calling it a desert war. And they say in their editorial that within one day, the war in Mali became a desert war, a war beyond borders. It's a new kind of war, according to Libération, a war that's asymmetrical and global. And it likens this kind of war to a cluster bomb that has impacts on different targets that are quite far apart in a ricochet manner. And according to Libération, the war in Mali isn't just this former colonizer that's waging war. This is a major international conflict.
Now, you pulled out a piece in Aujourd'hui en France. It's taking a bit of a closer look, isn't it, at the alleged mastermind of what's going on in Algeria.
That's right. Mokhtar Belmokhtar, he has many nicknames, the Blind or Mr. Marlborough for his counterband activity in the Sahel region. You see a photo of him there. He was born in 1972 in the south of Algeria, and he trained in Afghanistan and Pakistan in the 90s, where he reportedly met Osama bin Laden several times. He then returned to Algeria, where he joined Islamist groups. He's seen as a very powerful leader in the Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb. He's seen as quite good at rallying young people to join his movement. Now he was seen as also orchestrating several attacks against the French embassy in 2009, as well as the kidnapping of two French nationals in 2011. According to French intelligence, they've called him uncatchable.
Okay, let's go back to Libération then. They're taking a bit of a closer look at how these Islamist groups are actually arming themselves.
That's right. It's a fascinating article, and it points out that within just 3 days of fighting, French soldiers realized that they were up against fighters who were better trained and better armed than they thought. Now, where did these arms come from? According to Libération, most of these arms came from Libya, and it all started back in 2011 in March at the beginning of the uprising against Gaddafi. And it could be continuing today. So at first, Gaddafi, he hired many mercenaries to help fight the rebels. Some of these mercenaries were Tuareg rebels who often deserted, went back to Mali with their weapons. On top of that, weapons trafficking was boosted by Gaddafi's arsenals, which were all over the country and taken over, and arms were trafficked that way. Also, it turns out that France might have played a role, maybe unintentionally, by supplying this armed trafficking, by delivering arms that from Qatar to Libyan rebels. And perhaps some of these arms got into the wrong hands.
France, thanks a lot. France will know with the French newspaper review here on France 24 today. Coming up for you next, in focus, they are Jewish and they live in Iran, and yet they have synagogues, schools, hospitals and even a member of parliament. But are they accepted and do they feel safe? It's part of our special programmes on Iran today here on France 24. Stay tuned for that right after.